It's time again for the Insiders with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.
Hi, I'm Scott Jensen, former Assembly Speaker.
And I'm Chuck Chvala, former Senate Majority Leader.
And we're the Insiders, and we're looking forward to the Democratic Convention this weekend. Should be a lot of interesting things going on. Chuck, what do you think is going to happen at the convention this weekend? Who will be a winner? Who will be a loser?
Well, it's interesting. Conventions are oftentimes a great indicator of where things are going. And then at other times, they can be kind of a false indicator. Because the convention attracts a certain segment of the population, whether it's Republican or Democrat. And sometimes you can get this impression, oh my goodness, XYZ candidate was fantastic. And look at the support that they had. But that doesn't necessarily translate into people overall. And of course, that's changed over the years. Now, with literally millions of dollars going to be spent in the primary, that will adjust. So right now, what I would say is there are certainly a few people who have either from past events like Mandela Barnes or the place that they occupy, a lot of the socialist folks, maybe with Francesca Hong, or just because she's lieutenant governor and has started to spend some money, Sarah Rodriguez. Those folks I expect will have some support and they'll have some people behind them. I think you're going to see probably a surprise in terms of who's the most convention savvy and strongest of the rest of the field. There are 4 other strong candidates, every one of which has a chance to win. So it'll be a really interesting event. I do think that what happens after the primary, this is, I think, almost like the shooting off of the gun to start the campaign. There's been money expended by now by Sarah Rodriguez's campaign. In fact, she spent the most out of the Democrats running the primary. Yeah. Some money spent by Joel Brennan, and a little bit of money also spent by David Crowley. So already, and when I say by them, I mean them or organizations that are supporting them. In this case, I think most of it's from organizations supporting them, although Brennan, I think, spent out of his own campaign. So I think that there will be, my view is that when you go on TV, that makes you larger than life, just as Donald Trump became larger than life with The Apprentice. I think that you're going to see a lot more work being done on TV, and that'll be interesting. And by the way, TV these days isn't just broadcast. It's cable, but it's more than that. It's also digital, and it's also streaming. So there's an entirely broader environment that these people work with. But the convention, watch for false positives, but I think you will maybe have a couple of people who say, if I can't make it here and I don't have any money, what am I doing in the race?
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm sure that when they planned this convention, they were thinking this was going to be a celebration of Tony Evers' legacy and a handoff to the next generation, the next nominee. And instead, for the last few weeks, the governor and the Democratic leaders have been fighting. The audience, as you say, is not representative of the public overall. They're the highly active people in the Democratic Party, very likely to be very progressive, very left-wing crowd. They'll be wanting to trash Trump and abolish ICE and celebrate the transgender agenda. And then there's going to be 8 candidates with their short moment on the stage trying to win over that audience to their side by saying, I'm for government-run healthcare and government-run grocery stores and taxing the rich. And by the way, my opponents are all way too left-wing to possibly win because they want to defund the police. I don't think this is likely to go well for the Democratic Party. I think a lot of punches will be thrown. There'll be a lot of people who come home with a black eye, and very few people with a smile. And if there are any general election voters who are paying attention to this circus, I think their conclusion will be, wow, these folks aren't anything at all like Tony Evers.
God makes a lot of good points, but some of them are not true. Will Rogers, a great humorist back in the days of FDR, said famously, I don't belong to an organized party. I'm a Democrat. And that's definitely the way you have to look at it as Democrats. But what that means is that there's actually, unlike the Republicans who say, you're going to be the one, the Democrats actually let people fight about it. And frankly, in this environment where Donald Trump is going to be pointing the finger at whoever's going to be the next Republican person out there, I don't know that people are all that excited. And by the way, you're right. there will be some celebration of Governor Evers' 8 years, but there will not be the warm embrace of the candidate there because we don't know who that's going to be. I think what you'll see, though, is Governor Evers will be behind the Democratic candidate once the primary is done. And that'll be plenty of time for them to get done. I'll tell you one thing, though, where I do think Scott makes a point on the Democrats and what they're doing out there. Right now, the one thing that I'm really surprised at and really quite disappointed is that the Democratic Party hasn't aggressively gone after the Tiffany campaign, which is up and running with lots of ads all over the state of Wisconsin. We know that Tom Tiffany is a terrible candidate for Republicans, but that message is not getting out. And it is a mistake. It is political malpractice for Democrats to allow him to define himself as the dam manager or whatever the heck it is that he says he does out there, and not let them know that he's the guy who sponsored a 6-week abortion ban and did all sorts of other negative things. And I think that's something that ought to happen. But that's kind of independent from the convention. But don't be surprised if there are a lot of people talking to their leadership in the Dem party at the convention saying, where are you guys? The candidates don't have time or money to spend on this. They're fighting to see who's getting through the primary. So I think that's probably the most legitimate criticism of where Dems are at. But the convention, Will Rogers would love it.
Yeah, I'm sure he would. I think we should all buy popcorn. It's going to be fun to watch.
We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to The Insider with Chuck Chvala and Scott Jensen, sponsored by the Wisconsin Counties Association and the Tommy G. Thompson Center on Public Leadership.